Imagine trying to build a house. Like, you've got your blueprints, you know you need cinder blocks for the foundation, right?
Right, the basics.
Yeah, you need massive stacks of 2x4s for the framing, heavy sheets of drywall. And in almost any normal context, you just drive a heavy-duty pickup truck down to the local hardware store.
You load up the bed, drive back to your lot, and get to work.
Exactly. But in the scenario we are looking at today, that hardware store does not exist. I mean, the road doesn't even exist.
Yeah, it's a completely different reality.
It really is.
Yeah.
Your only option is to mail order every single piece of that house. And we are not talking about a massive freight truck rumbling up a highway.
No, not all.
We are talking about your foundation being delivered to you, cinder block by cinder block, via a tiny propeller plane threading its way through these jagged mountain passes. So, welcome to the reality of the Alaskan bush.
It forces an absolute redefinition of what a supply chain actually is.
Oh, totally.
Because when you strip away the pavement, when you strip away the entire concept of a road network, the physical rules governing how society operates are just entirely upended.
Right.
Infrastructure is no longer just a convenience, It is the absolute razor-thin margin between survival and collapse.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission today is to use an incredibly specific cultural map to explore that razor-thin margin.
And it's a fascinating map.
It really is. We are diving into the opening chapters of Dana Stabenow's novel, Nothing Gold Can Stay. And we're looking at this fiction text not just as a story, but as like a masterclass in extreme logistics.
Yeah, it's so detailed.
We're going to explore the miraculous, terrifying aviation required just to survive, severe bending of frontier law, and the intense psychological toll of ultimate isolation.
Well, the author provides just a perfect crucible for this kind of exploration. I mean, the setting is the fictional town of Newenham.
Which is positioned near the very real Nushagak River, right?
Exactly. And Newenham acts as the hub. Radiating out from it are these tiny, profoundly isolated villages with names like Kagati Lake.
Just completely off the grid.
Completely. These are places utterly and completely dependent on the sky for their connection to the rest of the planet. And to navigate this landscape, the text introduces us to two central figures who basically embody the pragmatism you need to survive here.
Right. So we have Liam Campbell, who is an Alaska State Trooper.
Right.
And the detail that immediately grounds us in this world is, well, it's his living situation.
It's so good.
It is. Here is a 6'2" man whose primary residence is a 7-foot Jyco pop-up camper parked in a gravel driveway.
Just freezing in there.
Yeah, he is literally ducking to avoid hitting his head. He doesn't have a shower. He doesn't even have a closet to hang his trooper uniform so it doesn't wrinkle.
Right. He is a man temporarily stripped of the dignity usually afforded to his office, and largely because that camper is parked in the driveway of Waina Chouinard.
Right.
Why, exactly. She's a fiercely independent bush pilot, the owner and sole operator of Nushagak Air Taxi.
And Liam's highly complicated romantic partner.
Yes, very complicated. The reason Liam is relegated to the freezing camper is that Y recently adopted an adolescent son named Tim.
Right.
And she operates on absolute pragmatism. Her rule is firm, no complicated romantic entanglements inside the house while the boy is adjusting to his new life.
And that pragmatism bleeds into every single interaction they have. I mean, there's this fantastic debate they have right there in the driveway about their vehicles.
The truck debate.
Yes. Liam casually mentions that the massive Ford F-250 he drives is a boy truck. And Y, who does not suffer fools gladly, immediately pushes back.
It's like, what's a girl truck?
Exactly.
Huh.
She asks what a girl truck is. Liam defines it as something smaller, maybe a Ford Ranger. So Y points to her own truck, which is this heavily dented, rusting mass of metal, and asks where that falls on the gender spectrum.
And Liam categorizes her vehicle as an old man's truck.
Which is so funny.
Yeah. It is, but the mechanical rationale he uses is fascinating because it highlights mechanical literacy required in the bush. Like, he points out that her truck needs a ring job.
Okay, let's pause on that. A ring job.
Oh.
Because for anyone who isn't a mechanic, piston rings sit inside the engine cylinders, right?
Yeah, they seal the combustion chamber.
Right. They seal it so the expanding gases push the piston down rather than leaking past it. So when those rings wear out, oil leaks up into the combustion chamber and burns.
And you get that terrible blue smoke.
You get the blue smoke and you lose engine compression. It is essentially a major catastrophic engine failure happening in slow motion.
Precisely. To fix it, you basically have to tear the engine completely apart. And Liam also notes the truck needs a front-end alignment, The canopy door is currently being held open by a bungee cord.
Classic.
Yeah, and she has to add a quart of oil every second time she fills the gas tank because of those failing piston rings.
Right.
But, and this is the crucial distinction, it still turns over. It's still dry.
It refuses to die.
Exactly. The sheer stubbornness of the machine continuing to function despite severe degradation makes it an old man's truck. Unless, as Liam jokes, it gets painted banana yellow or lipstick red, at which point it becomes a girl truck again.
It just perfectly sets the tone. I mean, think about your morning commute today. Picture walking out your front door, getting into a functioning car, maybe swinging by a drive-thru for a coffee.
Must be nice.
Right, and then merging onto a paved, heavily maintained highway to sit in a climate-controlled office.
Yeah.
Now compare that baseline reality to Liam waking up freezing in a tiny pop-up camper, or waking up doing a pre-flight check on an aircraft engine and flying over a mountain range literally just to deliver the morning mail.
And that morning mail delivery is the perfect anchor point for the actual logistics of this world. What we conventionally understand as the Postal Service functions as a completely different entity in the Alaskan bush.
It really does.
It is the absolute non-negotiable lifeblood of the region.
Let's dive deep into Wai's business, Nushagak Air Taxi. Because she operates with a fleet consisting of exactly 2 planes, right?
Right, one Piper Super Cub and one Cessna 180.
And she works out of this small, drafty shack. But she holds the U.S. mail contract for 10 remote villages north of Newenham.
Which is huge.
It is. This contract isn't just a job. It is the financial engine that literally pays the attorney fees keeping her adopted son, Tim, out of the hands of an abusive biological mother.
What's fascinating here is how the concept of the U.S. Postal Service transforms. Like, in a typical urban environment, the mail consists of utility bills, birthday cards, maybe a few Amazon packages.
Mostly junk mail.
Yeah, exactly. It's a mundane bureaucracy. But in the Alaskan bush, as depicted through Wise Route, the U.S. mail bypass system is how human beings physically sustain their existence.
Oh.
You brought up building a house earlier. The text gives us the incredible specific example of a man in Kagati Lake named Mark Pestrikoff.
Yes. Mark decides to get married. He decides his current living situation, which is basically a one-room tar paper shack, is no longer going to cut it.
He needs an upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he flies to Anchorage, goes to a building supply store, buys the raw materials for an entire 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, and he mails it to his empty lot in the wilderness.
He literally mailed a house.
Yes.
And the underlying mechanism there is purely economic. I mean, Pestrikoff calculated the exorbitant cost of hiring private heavy-lift air freight to move thousands of pounds of construction material.
Which would be astronomical.
It would ruin him. So he weighed that against the cost of dividing the load into smaller parcels and paying priority U.S. postage.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It is, because the postage was heavily subsidized by the government bypass mail system. It was exponentially cheaper to buy stamps for cinder blocks than to charter a cargo plane.
Right.
And he also couldn't wait 6 months for the river ice to thaw to bring the materials up by barge.
The image of while flying out cinder blocks, like 1 or 2 at a time, chucked into the back of a tiny Piper Super Cub is staggering to me.
It's absurd.
The payload capacity of a Super Cub is only a few hundred pounds. She had to make countless trips, acting as this microscopic airborne freight train just so this guy could pour a foundation.
Yeah, piece by piece.
And the text Riley notes that the house construction actually outlasted Pestrikoff's marriage.
Naturally.
But the structure remains as a monument to sheer logistical stubbornness.
It highlights that the Postal Service is the primary logistical artery. And it goes far beyond cinder blocks. It extends to acute medical survival, you know.
Right, the insulin.
Yes. Wiley flies a single small bag to a homestead called Akamanuk. She doesn't even need to look inside it. She knows by the weight, the shape, and the quarterly schedule that the bag contains a villager named Ted Gustafson's insulin.
And think about the stakes there. If the weather grounds that plane, Ted doesn't just get a late delivery notice, he goes into a diabetic coma.
It's life or death.
It is. If Y doesn't fly, Dave Aragon in Kagati Lake doesn't receive the studded snow tires he needs from Johnson Tire to safely drive his snow machine.
Which means he's stranded.
Exactly. When someone in the bush manages to make a Costco run to Anchorage, they literally mail boxes of Campbell's soup and pilot bread back home to survive the winter.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of how Y accomplishes this. Because the aviation skill described in the text, borders on terrifying.
Oh, for sure.
She doesn't have the luxury of flying point to point between paved 2-mile-long runways at international airports. She has to select her aircraft based purely on the physical limitations of the destination.
Right, so she has the Cessna 180 and the Piper Super Cub. The Cessna can carry a lot more weight, but it requires a longer, smoother strip to land.
Yeah, it's heavier.
But the Super Cub is legendary for its short takeoff and landing or steal-a-well capabilities. You can practically land a Super Cub on a gravel sandbar, but its cargo space is tiny.
So when she gets to Akamanuk to deliver that vital insulin, she is flying the heavier Cessna, and she has an unexpected passenger that morning.
Poor guy.
Seriously. It's an incredibly nervous Internal Revenue Service agent named Mr. Frederick Glanville.
I feel so bad for this guy. He's an auditor, he's used to quiet offices, and he is currently clutching his heavy leather briefcase to his chest for dear life.
He's out of his element.
Completely. Why hits a 10-knot tailwind on the way there? But when she arrives over Akamanuk, she realizes the makeshift dirt airstrip is too choked with overgrown trees to safely land the larger Cessna.
And a standard commercial pilot would simply abort the landing, return to the hub, and cite dangerous conditions.
Right. Safety first.
But why cannot do that? The insulin has to be delivered. So she employs what the text refers to as a mail bombing technique.
Mail bombing.
Yeah, and the aerodynamics and risk factors involved here are extreme. She drops a plane down to an altitude of 50 feet above the ground.
50 feet. I mean, commercial airliners cruise at 35,000 feet. At 50 feet, you are actively dodging the tops of pine trees.
You're skimming the earth.
And she opens the side window of the plane, and the slipstream of air just violently roars into the small cabin.
Just consider the sensory overload for the IRS passenger. I mean, the wind is deafening. The engine noise echoes off the ground and doubles in volume.
He must be terrified.
He is. The plane is buffeted by thermals rising off the uneven terrain. The text actually notes that Mr. Glanville whimpers over his headset.
But Y is completely locked in. She has to calculate the drop perfectly, and she does this using an incredibly improvised piece of technology.
This part is amazing.
On her first low pass over the homestead, she throws a half-used roll of toilet paper out the window.
The physics of that toilet paper roll are brilliant, because by letting the end unspool as it falls, it acts as an immediate, highly visible windsock.
Oh, right.
Yeah, she watches how the wind catches the paper, how quickly it drifts, and where it lands relative to the cabin door. By observing its terminal velocity and lateral drift, she calculates the exact wind shear and direction in that specific microvalley.
That is so smart. And it lands about 90 feet from the door. So armed with that visual data, she banks the plane hard, circles back around, and comes in for a second pass.
Getting ready for the drop.
She counts out 15 seconds from a specific visual landmark, and then physically chucks the heavy canvas mailbag out the open window.
And it hits the mark.
It hits the ground with a heavy thud exactly 10 feet in front of Ted Gustafson, who is standing on his porch. And inside the bag is his insulin, carefully packed with a box of sugar-free chocolates she threw in for weight ballast.
It is a display of mechanical mastery, environmental reading, and dead reckoning that is almost superhuman by modern urban standards.
Totally.
And yet this entire miraculous life-saving system is unbelievably fragile. I mean, the text brilliantly contrasts Y's supreme competence in the air with the petty, volatile human dynamics on the ground that threaten to bring the whole system crashing down.
Oh man, the feud with Finn Grant. This is where the reality of small-town isolation really bites. Finn runs Bristol Bay Air Freight. He is Y's direct competitor.
And Finn operates a much larger fleet. He's got an Otter and 2 Beavers.
Let's explain those planes for a second, for people who don't know aviation. The de Havilland Beaver and the de Havilland Otter are basically the heavy lift dump trucks of the Alaskan sky.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, they have massive radial engines. They are loud, slow, and they can carry massive amounts of cargo compared to Y's little Cessna. So Finn is really the big fish in this pond.
He is. But when the U.S. Postal Service redrew the map, they carved off 10 remote villages from Finn's route and awarded that bypass mail contract to Y.
Which he took personally.
Very. Finn did not view this as simple bureaucratic redistricting. He viewed it as an act of personal warfare. And the retaliation he engages in is deeply petty, but in this environment, pettiness is lethal.
Right. Finn institutes a total embargo. He refuses to allow his planes to share overflow passengers with Y.
Which hurts everyone.
It does. And he explicitly forbids his pilots from radioing Y with weather reports. Like, if one of Finn's pilots just flew through a dangerous storm cell over a mountain pass, They are ordered to stay silent and let Y fly right into it blind.
It's malicious, and the feud escalates over a seemingly microscopic issue, right? A single oil filter.
Oh yeah, the oil filter.
Y's plane needs an oil filter. Finn's mechanic, a man named Troy Gillis, sells Y the filter out of Finn's inventory at cost, simply because grounded planes benefit no one.
It's just common courtesy in the bush.
Exactly. But when Finn finds out, he docks Troy a full day's pay.
Which backfires spectacularly, because mechanics in the bush know their worth. Troy basically tells Finn exactly where to shove his job.
He quits on the spot.
He walks directly across the active primary runway, literally ducking under the nose of a massive Alaska Airlines 737 passenger jet, walks into Y's shack, and offers to be her full-time mechanic at a discount, just to spite Finn.
It's hilarious. But while the immediate interaction is highly entertaining, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we hit a profound realization.
Which is?
In the extreme wilderness, infrastructure is morality. If you control the supply chain, you control who lives and who dies.
Wait, expand on that. Infrastructure is morality.
Think about it. In a city, if two rival delivery companies hate each other, it doesn't matter to you. You still get your packages.
Right, UPS and FedEx don't affect my life.
Exactly. But in Newenham, 50 miles from the nearest road, a petty human rivalry has existential consequences. If Finn's pilots withhold a weather report and Y flies into a whiteout and crashes into a mountain, what happens?
Oh, wow.
10 villages lose their mail. Ted Gustafson loses his insulin. Families lose their winter food supply.
It's a domino effect.
It is. The human flaws of spite and jealousy are violently amplified by the isolation. The safety of hundreds of people rests entirely on the emotional stability of two rival pilots.
That concept that isolation warps the normal rules of society leads us directly into how the law operates in this environment. Because if the physical rules of delivery are warped by the bush, the statutory rules of law enforcement are bent completely out of shape.
They really are.
We see Y bending the rules of aviation physics. And down on the ground, Liam is bending the entire penal code.
The text sets up a brilliant, stark contrast between statutory law, the laws written in books in a capital city, and frontier justice. And we are introduced to this contrast through a brand new trooper named Prince.
Right. Everyone calls her Wonder Woman. Prince is fresh out of the academy. She is eager. She knows the Alaska state statutes backward and forward, and she operates strictly by the book.
It's very black and white.
Very. She walks into the trooper post and presents Liam with an incident report that she fully expects him to prosecute.
And the incident itself sounds like a slapstick comedy, but Prince treats it with absolute deadly seriousness.
It is hilarious. Prince wants to arrest two local fishermen, Art Inga and Dave Iverson.
Oh, these two.
According to her report, Art and Dave were at a permanent party at a woman named Tatiana's house. They got incredibly intoxicated, and in their drunken state, they both suddenly realize they are deeply in love with a different woman, Elizabeth Kotelnikov.
As one does at 4 a.m.
Naturally. So they stumble over to Elizabeth's house to serenade her.
But the logistical failure of their plan is immediate. Because Elizabeth works the night shift at the local cannery, she isn't even in the house.
Right.
When no one answers the door, the two men decide the logical next step is to climb through her bedroom window.
But they are so drunk and so competitive about who loves her more that they both try to climb through the exact same window frame at the exact same time.
It's like the Three Stooges.
It is. They get wedged together, physically stuck halfway through the window, and they both pass out cold.
Just stuck there. And when Trooper Prince arrives on the scene and wakes them up, a startled Dave pushes Art. Art falls backward out of the window, hits the ground, and comes up swinging his fists wildly.
And Prince easily subdues them and locks them in the city jail. She looks at the penal code and lists the charges. Drunk and disorderly in public, attempted breaking and entering, and resisting arrest.
Very serious charges on paper.
Right. To a freshly trained police officer, this is an open and shut felony case.
And what does Liam do? He literally reaches over to the computer terminal and hits the delete key on her report.
He wipes it from the system entirely.
He asks Prince one crucial question. Is Elizabeth pressing charges? And Prince admits that Elizabeth is lukewarm on the idea.
Liam explains the sociological reality of the town to his rookie. Like, these two men have been hopelessly in love with Elizabeth since they are all in high school together.
It's a known dynamic.
Yeah, Elizabeth enjoys the attention and constantly strings them both along. She will absolutely never show up to testify against them in a courtroom.
Right.
Furthermore, the local magistrate, a woman named Bill, who also runs the local bar, would laugh Prince out of the courtroom for wasting the court's time on a drunken romantic comedy.
So Liam's order to Prince is just to go down to the cells, yell at them for an hour, and release them.
And Prince is utterly baffled. To her mind, a crime was clearly committed, therefore a punishment must be dispensed. But Liam is operating on a totally different frequency.
A completely different paradigm.
But hold on. If we look at the very next scene, Liam's philosophy of ignoring the penal code takes a much darker, much more controversial turn.
You are referring to the traffic stop involving Amelia Gearhart.
Yes. Liam is out on patrol in his trooper blazer. It is 10 o'clock in the morning. He pulls over a Chevy Suburban that is swerving violently across the center line of the road.
A huge hazard.
And the driver is a 17-year-old girl named Amelia. When Liam approaches the window, the smell of alcohol is overwhelming. She is belligerent, slurring her words, and she arrogantly informs Liam that she can drive however she wants because she is the wife of City Councilman Darren Gearhart.
Now let's look at the statutory law. The text is very clear about Liam's legal obligation in this exact moment. As a sworn officer of the state, he is required to administer a field sobriety test, arrest her, and swear out a warrant for driving a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol.
Right, it's a DUI.
It is a Class A misdemeanor. It carries mandatory jail time, mandatory fines, and a suspension of driving privileges.
But he doesn't do it. He puts her in the passenger seat of his vehicle, leaves her Suburban on the side of the road, and instead of driving her to the jail cells, he drives her to Bill's Bar and Grill.
Which seems crazy.
It does. And I had to push back hard on Liam here. Let's really look at this. Isn't this just vigilantism dressed up as being a good guy? He is letting a severely intoxicated driver off the hook. She could have killed someone.
It's a fair point.
How does a society function when a single cop just arbitrarily decides which laws apply and which don't, based purely on his personal judgment?
It's a vital, deeply uncomfortable question, and the text forces us to sit with that moral ambiguity. To answer it, we have to look at why statutory law fails in this specific, isolated ecosystem.
Okay, lay it out for me.
In a major city like Anchorage, the law is designed as a massive, impartial machine. It relies on paperwork, standardized penalties, and the assumption of a robust social safety net. But in Newenham, Liam knows the victim intimately.
And by victim, you mean Amelia, not just the people she might have hit.
Exactly. When Liam looks at Amelia, he doesn't just see a drunk driver. He sees a 17-year-old girl with a fresh, dark bruise high up on her cheekbone.
Right.
He knows her husband, the city councilman, is a violent, manipulative alcoholic who won his local election simply by buying endless rounds of drinks at the bar.
So Liam's calculus is this. If he follows the law and arrests her, she goes into the system. She gets a criminal record, she gets a massive fine, and then, because she is a minor married to an adult, she is released right back into the custody of the man who is actively beating her.
The formal legal system offers zero actual protection for her underlying crisis.
Right.
It only adds financial ruin to her physical danger.
Which is why Liam brings her to the bar and why he defers entirely to a character named Moses Alakuyak.
Moses is such a towering figure in the text.
He really is. He is a Yupik elder. And Moses is fascinating. He describes himself as a mongrel, a mix of Yupik and white heritage.
Right, he has that whole speech.
He gives this incredible speech to a tourist in the bar, comparing purebred dogs to Heinz 57 mutts. He says the purebreds are neurotic and inbred, while the mucks are smarter, have better manners, and survive longer.
It's a great metaphor.
He declares that the mongrel horde will inherit the earth. He is an unignorable, deeply respected presence in the community.
Moses represents the deep, ancestral, indigenous social fabric of the region, a fabric that existed thousands of years before the Alaska state statutes were drafted.
Yeah.
When Liam brings Amelia into the bar, Moses doesn't consult a law book. He looks at a young woman who is actively destroying herself to cope with trauma. He turns to Liam and the magistrate, Bill, and explicitly says, "You're not going to arrest her, and you're not going to charge her."
And Bill, who is the actual judge at the town, asks what the alternative is. And Moses simply says, "I'll handle it. I'll take her up to fish camp, dry her out, talk some sense into her."
Let's analyze the sheer scale of what is happening in that moment. A community elder is completely bypassing the judicial, executive, and legislative branches of the state government.
It's wild.
He is taking extrajudicial custody of a criminal offender to provide off-the-grid rehabilitation.
But again, what if Moses gets it wrong? What if she runs away from the fish camp and freezes to death? There is zero oversight here.
And that is the terrifying tightrope of frontier justice. There is no safety net if it fails, but Liam allows it because he knows unequivocally that the state system will fail Amelia.
Right. He knows what waiting in the system means for her.
In a place this isolated, the communal social fabric is fundamentally stronger and far more binding than state law. Survival depends on intense personal community intervention, not just blind, punitive measures. As Liam thinks to himself in the text, this is where the human rubber meets the road.
It is a profound realization. The laws written in Anchorage simply do not map onto the reality of Newnham. And that disconnect between the theoretical idea of Alaska and the brutal reality of it brings us to a whole different kind of danger.
Yes.
It's not just the law that outsiders misunderstand. It is the physical environment itself.
The romanticization of the wild, it is a deadly psychological trap.
Oh, absolutely.
To people sitting in a climate-controlled apartment in a city, looking at a map or watching a nature documentary, the Alaskan wilderness is a beautiful, pristine postcard. It's a place to, find yourself.
But to the people who actually step foot in it, nature is a brutal, violently unforgiving test of endurance. And no character embodies this horrifying awakening better than Rebecca Hanover.
Rebecca's narrative is a masterclass in the disintegration of the wilderness fantasy. She is a legal secretary from Anchorage. She's a creature of the modern city.
The text gives us this vivid flashback to her previous life. Like she remembers sitting with her friend Nina in a bustling, warm Kaladi Brothers coffee shop.
She misses the comfort.
Yeah, she remembers the smell of Italian sausage roasting, watching the local news anchors on a television. Rebecca's a woman who deeply loves knitting, watching episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the reliability of electric lights, and the absolute luxury of flush toilets.
But her husband, Mark, has contracted the gold bug. He has bought into the pioneer myth completely.
Hook, line, and sinker.
He purchased a placer mine on Nenevok Creek, located deep inside a canyon in the Wood River Mountains.
Let's explain what a placer mine actually is, because it's not a deep underground tunnel with mine carts like you see in movies.
Right, it's not a shaft mine.
Placer mining is surface mining. You are looking for gold that has been washed down by rivers over millennia and trapped in gravel and sand. You use massive amounts of water and gravity to separate the heavy gold dust from the lighter dirt.
And Mark brings home these bright green and black riffled plastic gold pans. He forces Rebecca to quit her comfortable job, and he drags her out to this remote canyon claim for the entire summer.
The reality of her daily life at this mine is aggressively bleak. I mean, the physical geography of the canyon itself is oppressive. It is so deep and narrow that they only receive direct sunlight between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon.
The rest of the day is just spent in cold, damp shadow.
And the details of her misery are so visceral. She has to wash all their cooking pots in freezing creek water, which just destroys her hands. Every single drop of drinking water has to be manually pumped through a microscopic filter.
Why? To avoid sand, but more importantly, to avoid beaver fever.
Beaver fever, yeah.
Which is the colloquial term for Giardia. It is a microscopic parasite, Giardia lamblia, that lives in the intestines of infected animals like beavers and sheds into the water supply.
Gross.
The cysts can survive in freezing water for months. If you drink unfiltered water and ingest those cysts, they attach to your small intestine and cause horrific, debilitating gastrointestinal illness.
And dehydration from dysentery in a remote canyon can easily be fatal.
Exactly. So she is terrified of the water, and her bathroom situation is a nightmare. It is a teetery, leaning wooden outhouse, and the local grizzly bears literally use the rough wood of the outhouse as a scratching post.
Oh my gosh.
There are tufts of coarse bear hair permanently stuck to the outside of the door she has to walk through.
Nature does not care about Mark's pioneer fantasies. It is actively, passively hostile. At one point, a porcupine wanders into the outhouse while Rebecca is using it.
That poor woman.
She is forced to run outside, screaming with her pants around her ankles, and her husband's reaction is just to laugh at her. He buys her a .357 Magnum revolver for protection, but the weapon is so heavy and the recoil so violent that it nearly knocks her flat when she tries to fire it.
When Y flies her mail route over the canyon and drops off a bundle of magazines like an issue of Newsweek, a copy of Cosmopolitan Rebecca is nearly moved to tears.
She clutches those magazines like life preservers.
She does. Just seeing an advertisement for lipstick is her only tether to the outside world. She is being mentally and emotionally broken by the isolation.
Rebecca is surviving, barely, by the skin of her teeth, but the text immediately juxtaposes her misery with a much darker reality, the people who don't survive at all.
And we see this through the haunting, quiet subplot of Cheryl Montgomery.
This detail really stuck with me. Back at the trooper post, Liam gets a message that a man named Lyle Montgomery called. Lyle calls the post on the first day of every single month, without fail.
Every month.
His daughter, Cheryl, was a 26-year-old wildlife biologist. In August of 1997, Finn Grant flew her out to a remote ranger station. He dropped her off with a canoe and a full load of camping supplies. Her plan was to canoe and camp her way up a chain of lakes to a mountain lodge.
And she never arrived.
She just vanished. The massive official search operation eventually suspended its efforts. The family fought the legal presumptive death hearing in court, refusing to believe she was gone.
Which is heartbreaking.
It is. But the grim reality that Liam knows is that Cheryl was a confident, highly educated backpacker who was simply swallowed whole by the massive expanse of the Wood-Tikchik State Park.
It is the ultimate counter-argument to the romantic wilderness myth. The environment is not evil. It is completely terrifyingly indifferent.
Right, doesn't care who you are.
It absorbs human life without leaving a trace. Lyle Montgomery's monthly phone call is a rhythmic, ticking reminder to Liam that the wilderness always wins in the end.
But then you have a third category of people. You have the outsiders like Rebecca, who are broken by it. You have the tourists like Cheryl, who are swallowed by it. And then you have the locals who actually know how to survive in it.
But the text doesn't let them off the hook either.
No, it doesn't. It introduces us to John Kvichak and Teddy Engebretson, who demonstrate a deeply flawed, highly territorial mastery of the environment.
John and Teddy are childhood friends. They co-own a commercial fishing boat together, a drift netter called the Isabella Rose, named after their mothers.
A quick note on drift netting. It is an incredibly grueling, dangerous form of commercial fishing in Bristol Bay. You spool out massive nets behind the boat and let the violent ocean tides pull the net through schools of migrating salmon.
It's intense labor.
It requires immense physical strength and a deep understanding of ocean currents. John and Teddy are hard men.
And when the fishing season ends, the fall hunting season begins. They charter Y to fly them out to a remote area called Nucklaneck Bluff to hunt moose and caribou.
And we need to clarify. This isn't sport hunting for a trophy to hang on a wall.
No, this is subsistence hunting.
If John and Teddy do not successfully kill and butcher a massive bull moose, their freezers are empty, and their families do not have sufficient protein to survive the crushing winter.
The stakes are absolute, but their behavior is appalling. They possess the necessary survival skills, but they treat this vast, shared wilderness like their own private, heavily armed frat party.
They literally refer to the public lands as the Kvikak Engebretson Private Hunting Preserve. If an out-of-state hiker wanders into the valley they are hunting in, John and Teddy will slash the hiker's expensive tent with a knife and throw all their camping gear into the creek.
They're bullies!
They once shot the entire bottom out of a tourist couple's aluminum canoe, leaving them stranded.
The text mentions they even deliberately shot their high-powered rifles into the brush near a group of guided tourists that Finn Grant had flown in, just to deliberately spook a record-rack moose away from the paying hunters.
That's so dangerous.
It is. The local fish and game trooper knows they are committing these crimes, but the wilderness is too vast to ever prove it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. On the day Y flies in to pick them up, they have just successfully dropped a massive bull moose. They have harvested 600 pounds of critical life-saving meat.
They did what they needed to do.
And what is their immediate reaction? With their hands and clothes literally still dripping with the animal's blood, they crack open a case of Miller Genuine Draft beer and start getting hammered.
They are the absolute antithesis of the noble savage or the respectful outdoorsman trope. Their relationship with the land is gritty, violently territorial, and heavily fueled by alcohol.
Right.
The wilderness strips away societal polite behavior and replaces it with a primal, aggressive dominance.
Which proves that whether you are an Anchorage secretary, an educated biologist, or a hardened local fisherman, the environment acts as a massive pressure cooker. It amplifies every human flaw.
It really does.
And that realization sets up the final, terrifying convergence of the story. Because isolation doesn't just breed eccentricity or bend the rules, it breeds profound, inescapable vulnerability.
The defining characteristic of the Alaskan bush is distance. And when distance is weaponized, the tension becomes unbearable. Yeah. The author starts introducing these ticking time bombs into the narrative, and because of the geography, there is no way to defuse them quickly.
The first bomb drops right inside the trooper post. A woman named Natalie Gosick walks in. She is holding a single sheet of paper. It is a court order officially signed by a judge in Anchorage named Renee Legere.
And that order grants Natalie limited supervised visitation with her son.
Liam immediately recognizes the name, and the text provides us with his internal monologue, which is a searing indictment of the blind statutory legal system we discussed earlier.
Liam knows Natalie Gosek. He knows that she has been officially accused 4 separate times of violently assaulting her minor child.
4 times.
He stands there looking at this piece of paper, and he thinks about the judge in Anchorage. He thinks about how incredibly easy it is for an urban judge to look at a perpetrator standing in a clean, well-lit courtroom.
Right, because they clean up nicely for court.
Exactly. The abuser is temporarily sober. They're wearing a neat borrowed suit. They have a public defender standing next to them whispering legal advice. They vow that they have found religion or completed a 12-step program, and they beg for a second chance.
And the judge, operating entirely on the theoretical ideals of rehabilitation and family reunification, signs the order. They believe they're doing the right thing.
But Liam operates in the mud. He is the one who has to respond to 911 calls. He's the one who finds the broken, bleeding children hiding in closets. Kids who are too absolutely terrified of their parents to ever speak to a prosecutor.
It's just devastating.
He knows that Natalie will inevitably start drinking again. But right now, she holds a legally binding weapon forged by an out-of-touch bureaucracy.
And then the narrative delivers the ultimate gut punch, the child that Natalie is legally demanding to see. The son she lost custody of.
It's Tim, Y's adopted son.
Yes. The quiet teenager that Liam had just checked on that very morning, sleeping safely in his bed with a Harry Potter book, discarded on the floor.
Natalie looks at Liam and says, "The woman my son lives with won't let me in the door."
She is heading for Y's house. I want you to think about your own home for a second. Picture your living room. If you know a violent, unstable person is walking up your driveway with ill intent, what do?
You call the cops?
In a city, you lock the deadbolt, you dial 911, and a patrol car with 2 armed officers arrives in 3 to 4 minutes.
But in the bush, Liam is the only state trooper available, and he is buried in a massive jurisdiction.
And why? She isn't even home. She is hundreds of miles away, flying her Piper Super Cub over a mountain range, dropping mail to Ted Gustafson.
Tim is alone, or at best, incredibly vulnerable.
The lack of an immediate, overwhelming police response turns a standard domestic dispute into a high-stakes horror scenario. The isolation strips away every single protective layer until it's just the victim and the threat.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see the true genius of how the author uses the setting. The true antagonist in this story isn't just a violent mother or a petty rival pilot.
It's the geography itself.
The antagonist is the geography. The distance itself empowers the threat, and we see an exact, terrifying parallel to this domestic threat playing out at the exact same time, hundreds of miles away, in the tiny village of Kagati Lake.
Oh, the scene in Kagati Lake legitimately made the hair on my arms stand up. We're introduced to Opal Nonopichuk. She is 56 years old, and she is the postmistress of the village.
She's a wonderful character.
She is a woman who radiates quiet pride and contentment. She operates the official U.S. Post Office right out of the corner of her own living room.
The description of her home is vital because it establishes her total sense of security. Her living room is a museum of her family's history and survival in this harsh landscape.
She stands behind a postal counter made from a massive slab of burlwood. The text notes that the gnarled spruce tree it was cut from was personally felled by her own father decades ago.
It's deeply personal.
It is. She has locked glass display cases lining the walls. Inside the cases are antique Winchester rifles, including one that local legend says was brought north during the gold rush by Wyatt Earp himself.
Wow.
She has jars of raw gold nuggets, heavily carved ivory walrus tusks, ancient grinning Yupik ceremonial masks. It is a home deeply insulated by history and familiarity.
Opal feels untouchable in this space. She knows the history of every single object, and she knows the face of every single person in the village.
But on this specific morning, she is entirely alone.
The vast majority of the village population has traveled upriver to a remote fish camp, waiting to harvest the last run of silver salmon for the season.
And the silence of the village is broken when the door to her living room opens. A stranger walks in.
In a community of a few dozen people, a stranger is an immediate anomaly.
He is described as short and stocky. He has dirty grayish blonde hair that looks like it hasn't been washed in weeks. He is wearing a dark blue heavy-duty interior frame backpack, and strapped to the outside of that backpack is a sheathed shotgun.
He's heavily armed,
When he speaks, his voice is rusty and cracking, like a man who has spent months in absolute isolation and has forgotten how to use his vocal cords.
Opal, drawing on her years of experience in the bush, assumes he is just a hermit. The wilderness attracts deeply antisocial people who retreat into the woods to avoid humanity.
Right.
So she remains polite and professional.
But the stranger doesn't want stamps. He starts slowly pacing around her living room. He's taking a calculated visual inventory of the glass cases, the rifles, the gold nuggets. He asks Opal if her father is the collector.
He is establishing dominance over the space. He is measuring the wealth he can extract. And then he makes his move.
He swings the heavy frame pack off his shoulders and sets it on the floor. He reaches his hand deep inside the main compartment. And when his hand comes back out, he is holding a heavy pistol.
The psychological terror of this moment is brilliant. He doesn't scream, he doesn't aim the gun at her head or threaten to shoot her.
No, he just lets the heavy pistol dangle casually by his side, pointing at the floorboards. He looks at Opal, he smiles this terrible rusty smile, and he simply says, "You have to come with me."
Just apply the concept of the fatal funnel from tactical home defense to this moment. In a city, you can retreat out a back door, run to a neighbor's house, flag down a passing car.
There are options.
In Kagati Lake, there is nowhere to run. The village is deserted. The wilderness outside her door is hundreds of miles of impassable tundra.
And there are absolutely no police in Kagati Lake. Liam Campbell is hours away by plane, dealing with Natalie Gosuk. The only lifeline Opal has to the outside world is the mail plane, Y's plane.
And Y isn't scheduled to land on the dirt strip for another 2 hours.
This armed stranger has essentially hijacked a federal post office and taken a hostage inside her own home, and there's absolutely no one Opal can scream to for help.
The profound isolation that usually brings her peace, the distance that she loves, has instantly inverted. It has become a cage.
These two incredibly tense situations, Natalie Gosuk, armed with a legal document marching toward an unprotected teenager in Newnham, and an armed drifter taking a woman hostage in the silent living room of Kagati Lake, they perfectly encapsulate the core thesis of this entire world.
When the fragile systems break down, you are entirely on your own.
We have traveled through a landscape defined by extreme parameters today. We started by looking at the miraculous, physics-defying aviation required just to deliver a box of insulin or a foundation block.
We examined how the crushing weight of distance forces the law to bend, bypassing judges in favor of community elders.
We saw how the wilderness relentlessly crushes romantic illusions, breaking people like Rebecca and erasing people like Cheryl.
And finally, we saw how that sheer, unyielding geography turns every single conflict into a high-stakes, life-or-death scenario where help is simply too far away.
It is a portrait of the society, balancing on the edge of a knife, entirely dependent on individual competence, stubborn machinery, and the fragile strength of the community.
It forces a complete reevaluation of the invisible systems we rely on every single day.
Exactly. So, what does this all mean for you? I want to challenge you to really examine the safety nets in your own life today. When you woke up, you turned a handle and clean, filtered water poured out. You didn't have to boil it to kill parasites.
You drove on paved roads maintained by taxes.
If someone tries to kick in your front door tonight, you can dial 3 numbers on your phone, and highly trained, armed professionals will speed to your location in minutes to protect you.
But what happens to your psychology, your morality, and your rules if all of those safety nets are instantaneously vaporized?
Right.
If the only way to get medicine is to pray a tiny airplane can dodge a mountain peak in a snowstorm?
And I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought to ponder as you go about your day. In a world of extreme isolation, your survival ultimately depends entirely on the people immediately around you.
The state cannot save you. The law is just ink on paper.
If the power grid fails, if the planes can't fly, and the police can't reach you, who is your Moses Alakoyak? Who in your life, in your immediate physical community, would possess the strength and the moral authority to step in and stave you when the official systems break down completely?
It is the ultimate question of human connection in the face of an indifferent world.
It's a heavy question, but an absolutely vital one. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the absolute edge of logistics and law. Keep questioning the systems around you, keep looking way beyond the postcard version of reality, and we'll catch you next time.